control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She caught me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, how you guys doing? Great to see you. I am here, and this is, of course, the Paranormal Portal Night Terrors. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I think I'm live and ready to go. I'm at least live. My ready to go is kind of arbitrary. It's starting to snow here again, which is really unfortunate. It's not the vibe I wanted until like maybe next winter, but I didn't get a vote on that apparently. But I hope you guys are doing great wherever you are, whatever's going on in your day. I hope your day went well, and thank you so much for spending your time with me right here on the portal. It's always an honor, and it's a really cool pleasure to just continually see people come back and over and over and have such wonderful things to say about the show. And thank you to all of you who continue to spread the word about the portal to people and groups that you're in. It's been absolutely phenomenal, and just seeing the amount of interest, especially in the podcast, it's just been phenomenal. And I would love to get that much traction here on YouTube as well, but we're not quite there yet. But hopefully it really turns the corner. YouTube is a tough one because it's no tougher one versus the other, but we just seem to do much better. Maybe I got a face for podcasting. Maybe that's what it is. You never know. It might be me. But it's been really cool to see the numbers continue to go up on our YouTube, or on our YouTube too. It is growing, but the podcast has just been really impressive, and we have all of you guys to thank for that. So thank you, and continue to spread the word if you would, please. We definitely want this to grow, especially not only the podcast, but again the YouTube audience. We would love to see it quadruple, in a hurry, or better. Whatever we can get, of course, we're happy for. If we only get a few people again, throughout the days, that's fine too. But it's just fun to watch it grow, and as it grows, of course, so does our ability to do more as time goes on. Oh, I forgot to pull that wire right down. Sorry, I got to straighten this out, otherwise I'm going to end up yanking it and causing real problems here in the studio. There we go. That's much better. All right, so hope you guys are wonderful. I'm doing good, as I said, and these are the night terrors. The phone lines. Oh, God, I forgot to contact the phone lines. I forgot that part. The phone lines are about to be live in just a second. God, I heard that Skype updated, and I forgot to test this. So mind your ears, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if this is going to be good, bad, or otherwise. Let's see. Not bad. I think it's okay. It's normal. All right. Yeah, it's working right. Okay, good. Everybody's Skype has been updating, and of course that's raising hell with a lot of people's connectivity and such. And it also raises hell with the settings. I've seen more and more problems coming up as these Skype things continue to update. It does never work well, and I think Microsoft takes a lot of them on the chin, for as far as that goes. But they do have a tendency to break things that work just fine. They have a tendency to reinvent their wheels, and that's really unfortunate. And a special announcement tonight, in to help out our buddy Cade on the Believe podcast. He had an episode go live today with the interview with Jim Harold, and so that's That's a fantastic episode, and I hope you guys will go check it out. And you can check it out over on believepod.com. Again, believepod.com is the website, and you can check out that episode. So again, the Believe podcast, which is believepod.com, and Jim Harold was the guest, and what a great show that is. And so definitely support our buddy Cade over there on his podcast, and show him lots of love. So but other than that, what can I say? I guess I'm all ready, so I hope you're ready, because it's time for bed. I hit the closing credits. Yeah, the shows go quick, but not quite that quick, ladies and gentlemen. This is we are now official. It's underway. So uh you're listening tonight. Good to see you, Beth. We missed you. Great to see you. Thanks for coming in, and thanks to all of you who are coming in. There's a bunches of you, bunches and bunches. Let's see who's here. Amber's here. Annie, Beth, Brown Dwarf, E. Spears. Oh man, I'm burning incense and it burns my eye. Heather is here. I am Pam. Isaac Areola. Justin Goodearth. Kate is here. Lindsay is here. Marilena. Moog is here. Naughty Nessie Monster. Naughty Nessie. Patrick Douglas is here. Rachel gets it right. Rob Klein is here. The Pharmacy Seeds Network is here. And Happy Trio is here. Someone else just came in too, but I don't know. Or left. One of the two. So might have either gained or lost someone there. I'm not sure what happened. But welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And more of... Oh, Cha-Cha just came in, so the party can start. Dennis Conroy, how you doing? Thanks for finding us and watching us. Cryptidville. That's cool. Good to see you guys. It's good to see. It's really cool to see the new faces. And if you've been here before, forgive me. I don't often get a chance to look too much at the chat, so when I do and see a new name, that's exciting for me. So thanks, guys, for coming to check out the shows. Hope you like it, and I hope you continue to come back. So and subscribe if you haven't. Please subscribe. It's the law. I'm sorry, it's the law. All right, let me get some stories opened up here for your listening pleasure. And hopefully I'll keep you wildly entertained throughout the duration of this journey into the paranormal portal. Be sure to keep your hands and feet inside the car at all times. Portal entrances are rather sharp. All right, the first one tonight is coming from Hawaii. Oh, we've had a few from Hawaii lately. These are cool because Hawaii has a whole lot of supernatural activity going on there. And I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not for sure why that is, but I suspect it has a lot to do with being on the Pacific Ring of Fire. I think that those natural spots like that are just boiling with natural energy. I think that the natural energy is just off the charts in places like that. And I think that again then affects the supernatural and paranormal activities. It makes this energy is so much more readily available. And so it makes sense. And not to mention the rich history that Hawaii has, and with such an incredible spirituality that and reverence for the earth that they lived on. So it doesn't surprise me that there's a lot of spirits that just remain there because that's sacred to them. So, but yeah, I like these Hawaiian stories. All right, it says, when I was 11 years old, when my appendix burst, it was the worst pain I'd ever felt, and I felt hot. The nausea would come in waves, and my parents didn't understand what was happening to me. I was sick, really sick, and no one seemed to take me seriously. When I started having seizures, my parents realized the severity of the situation, and they rushed me to the doctor. It was back in the day when you see the family doctor for everything, and as soon as he saw me, he knew I needed to get to the hospital right away. In less than a half hour, we were loaded up and off to the nearest hospital. Well, I was scared, sick, and hallucinating. I was told my fever was pretty high at that point. The doctor said I was septic and rushed me into surgery. I remember falling asleep almost right away. I found myself hovering over the doctors. Yeah, I was floating above my actual surgery and I wasn't scared. There were angels with me and they made me feel really safe. I could see other beings in the room, but they weren't clear like the angels, and they seemed to float in and out of the room. I remember asking the beings around me if I was dead, and they smiled really big, and I could hear a beautiful music in the distance. I wanted to go there, but they told me I needed to wait. They said it's not your time yet. You must be patient. That's kind of a pun, isn't it? You must be patient. Ba-dum-bum. It sounded like their voices had blended into one beautiful musical voice. I watched the surgery as though it were happening to somebody else. It didn't scare me, and I watched with a kind of detachment. I heard every word that was said, and I saw every last stitch they placed in my body. They cut me from hip bone to hip bone, and it didn't bother me to see them trying to clear away the damage. And I saw them flushing out the area around my intestine, and I stared with curiosity at the black tubes sticking out of my mouth. I felt happy. It was a strange place to be in, and I didn't have a care in the world, and I didn't care about the body on the table. I remember the doctors talking about my regular heartbeat and my dangerously low blood pressure, and I heard them talk about my short stature and how I didn't look like a girl who was about to turn 12. The angelic beings floated around my body and they stayed close by. The two nearest my floating form was the hardest to see. Three angels were floating above my body on the table, and I think they must have been my guardians, but I can't say for sure. Before I knew it, the angels and the other beings said it was time to go back, and I didn't want to go. It felt like my soul was being sucked back into my body. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in recovery. When I could talk, the doctors were amazed at my story. I told them I was floating above the surgery and hearing every bit of the conversation. I remember a few other doctors entering the recovery area to hear my tale, and it didn't seem like a big deal to me at the time. Now, I know how special it was, but it wasn't to be the last time. I'll have to save those stories for another time. But I don't fear death. It's just a small part of the journey. Wow, what an exceptionally cool situation. Um, to be sitting there with angels watching your own surgery. I mean, for one, if you're out of your body and you look over and you see an angel, it's like, okay, things are good. We're good. That's the kind of company you definitely probably want in those kind of situations because, of course they hold vigil over us, but, perhaps miraculous healings and other things, or at least, you're in good hands. It's about as good a situation as you could hope for. But I guess it is odd that the person wasn't at all concerned, but maybe that's just by virtue of being surrounded by angels. Who knows? But what a really cool story. I love those. And that's almost a near-death experience with the exception of the tunnel of light and all that. But they didn't actually go anywhere. It looks like we're having troubles with web page for the phone. So if anybody's trying to call in, I do apologize, but it's kind of coming in and out, and I'm not sure why. I keep seeing a red error thing pop up, and then it refreshes. So if you're trying to call in, just understand the phones may be a little flaky tonight. I'm not sure. But the phone numbers to call in is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. And if you ever get stuck and you're like, hey, I want to call in, what was that number? Just look over here. Over here. The number is right above me on your screen, so you can see it if you know where to look. It's kind of small, but I'll have to blow that up. That's always been my plan for about the last 8 months, but I still haven't done it. But yeah, I love those angelic stories like that. Those are beautiful. We cover a lot of creepy ones on the show, but when stories like that come around, it's just like, wow. I wish there were a lot more of those stories, and perhaps people don't want to tell them if they're experiencing them, or perhaps they really are really rare to experience. I'm not sure, but there's ghost stories, everywhere you turn, on TV, on the internet, it doesn't matter where, there's some kind of ghost thing being discussed, but you don't hear a lot about the angelic stuff and the really positive stuff. So it's nice to see those pop up from time to time. I'd like to think that everybody has angels around them or angels available to them if they should call, but I don't know. I've certainly heard those claims, but who knows for sure? I guess it's probably good to believe that. But anyway, the next story is coming from California. This one's a pretty lengthy one, but not too bad. It says, I'd like to start right after my brother's passing. I explained some unusual incidents that occurred in my first story, and now I will write more about unexplained things that happened in our home. I don't like it when they refer to another story that they submitted, because unless they're back to back, it's really hard to know what the hell story are they referring to. All right, my family and I would occasionally hear a voice calling our names, and this started happening about a month after his passing. One day, my youngest daughter, who was 13 years old, and I were walking down the hallway, going towards the living room, and we were both talking, and she then said, Mama. A few seconds after she said Mama, we both heard someone say Mama, but in a really funny voice, and it did sound like my brother. My daughter and I looked at each other, and she said, Did you hear that? And I said, Yeah. And we both repeated to each other what we had heard. My kids, which I have 6, have always called me Mama. Even all of their friends do. And when my brother was alive, he would sometimes tease me and say, Mama this, Mama that. Another time, my 2 youngest kids were in school, and my then 11-year-old son came home from school and said that when he was in class, he heard someone call his name. And that same thing he said, it sounded like his uncle. A few days after that, my then 13-year-old daughter came home and said, Mama, I need to talk to you alone. I then asked her what was wrong, and she then replied, While I was sitting in my class today, I heard someone calling my name. And she said the same thing as my son, that it sounded like her uncle. That went on for quite some time while the kids would come home once in a while with the same story. Another incident occurred at my twin son's apartment. He called up one day, scared out of his wits, and he said that he was in the bathroom shaving, and when he looked in the mirror, he swears he saw his uncle looking at him for a very short time, and it really did scare him. My youngest daughter had asked one day if I had went to her room and fixed her blankets, and I told her no, and she told me that the night before she was asleep, and then when something woke her up, and she said she saw someone lifting her blankets up at the foot of the bed, and she said the same way Uncle used to. Well, I failed to tell you in my first story that the day the dishes were moving around in the kitchen, I actually, prior to that, had been in my hallway bathroom praying because I needed a quiet place to go, and in my home, that's it. I'd been worried that maybe my brother's spirit may be lost, and that's why we were having all these strange things happen. I was praying to God and asking him to help my brother find peace. And I asked him to take him to heaven and to take care of him. And to be honest, I really was praying hard. And that's when my kids called me and said the dishes were moving. And sure enough, they were. I started getting scared, and my husband felt that my brother was trying to get me to go with him because we were so close. I even went to a church, and a preacher told me it couldn't be my brother, that it was bad demons or spirits in my home. And I asked the preacher if he would come and pray in my home, and you can guess his answer was no. What the hell? Why not? He said that I needed to do the praying myself in order for the bad spirits to leave. And quite frankly, I know he was too damn scared to help. I do continue to feel a presence at times, and for some darn reason, always in my hallway bathroom. I'll write more at a later time. Yeah, what the hell is that all about? You got demons in your house. You got spirits in your house. Can you come over and pray? No. It's like, what the hell are you doing? You only there for, donations or what? Go do your job. And that's my problem with some organized religion, ladies and gentlemen, is these people that they claim that they're spiritual leaders. They claim that their messages are absolute. But they don't do much other than do their services, and there's some that do, and I'm not lumping everybody into this category, but there's some people using those titles that have no business using those titles. They have no business doing anything, and trying to lead anybody spiritually. There's some really screwed up people that are wearing collars and dangling crosses and stuff that have no business doing it. And it's not the sole territory of Christianity either. I mean, it's every religion. There's always these idiots that they can go through the classes, they can go get the diplomas and get the degrees, but it's only regurgitating knowledge. There's no spiritual depth to many of these people. There's no spiritual understanding to many of these people. They can regurgitate stuff. They can tell you where it says something, and they can recite verse and but they just don't have any spiritual depth. They don't have a manner of understanding spirituality. And I think that I've read recently that, of course, organized religions, Christianity in particular is the one I'm referring to, but that church attendances are at an all-time low. And I don't think that's people turning away from God. I don't at all. I don't think that that's people ignoring, their search for the divine. I think it's absolutely the opposite. It's because people are searching for their divine and for their connection to the divine, and they're finding that they can't find it in those buildings. They can't find it from these people. That these people have no path for them to follow. Some arbitrary instructions of live good, go to church, et cetera, et cetera. It's like this checklist, and then suddenly you're saved. And it's like, no, it's a journey. True spirituality is a journey of development, and it's a journey of aligning yourself with the divinity that is at your core, and therefore also to the divine in the universe. And I think that's what this church attendance thing is about. Is that a lot of people are looking, and they're looking desperately for this connection, but they're not finding it, and in a lot of organized religion, and that's the shortcoming, and that's the problem. And just my 2 cents, it's just my opinion, but I've not met many people in religious communities that I would follow, and that's not me degrading somebody, but it's just me, it takes a lot for people to trust, and to trust to that level, like, guide me, lead me. And some people will trust blindly, and that's, God bless them for that. I can't do that. I can't do that. So, but I think that's the real problem, is people are looking, but they're not finding it. And that's why they're not going to the churches. That's why the attendances are at an all-time low, is because there's no answers there. Religion shouldn't be a history lesson. That's not what religion should be. That can be part of it. It can be a foundation, but it can't be the entirety of a religion. It's a history lesson. There's got to be a living religion that you follow and that you express and that you pursue to find your path to the divine. So anyway, it's stuff like that is in my book that'll be coming out soon. My book is called Reflections of a Growing Soul, and it's my own journey. It's my own path and things that I've followed and what's led me to, where I am in life, and good, bad, and otherwise. It's just my journey. So when that gets published, I'll be sure to guide you guys to where you can find it. But yeah, hopefully it'll be coming out soon. So that's one of the announcements. But looks like we're getting close to that. So I'll let it out of the bag so you guys know that it's something coming up. But that's my 2 cents on that. That's part of the benefit of showing up, is that you not only get great entertainment, you get my opinions as well. Whether you want them or not, they're coming, because I got a microphone and I'm going to fill it with whatever I want. All right, let's go to the next one, and this is coming from North Carolina. Another rather lengthy story tonight. I love these long stories. So far, these stories I've posted have been about things that have happened to me in my childhood. This story, however, takes place about 7 to 8 years ago, shortly after we moved into our present home and is the only paranormal type event I have experienced in our present house. It was an autumn evening after dark, and I was just getting home from work. I just got out of the car, struggling with my big purse, my lunch bag, and 2 or 3 plastic bags of groceries. And I tried to get in the back door, but found my husband had accidentally hooked the screen door, when he left that morning. Excuse me. So grumbling, I made my way around to the front door with my key. Now the front door opens into the living room, dining room area, and you have to go through there to reach the den and the kitchen. I have 2 house cats, and I do not allow them to go into the living room or dining room because I don't want them throwing up on my good rugs, as cats are prone to do so. The street lamp cast enough light for me to see, so I didn't bother with the light switch. Juggling my purse and my groceries, I made my way through the front door, pushed open the wooden folding door to the den, and stuck out my foot in an effort to block the cats. I saw my big black male cat dart nimbly past my leg anyway and disappear into the shadows of the living room. I was irritated because I knew once he got by me, it was his habit to hide under the couch and make me drag him out. Well, I quickly closed the door so the female couldn't follow him and made my way onto the kitchen to put down my stuff. But when I turned on the light, to my amazement, there stood both cats by their food dishes waiting to be fed. I know my cat didn't double back because I would have seen him, and from past experiences, he would not have done that anyway. He likes the game of hide and seek. He plays whenever he manages to break into the living room area. I thought it was a little strange, but I didn't think too much about it. But a few weeks later, I returned home from work again about the same time with my big purse, lunch bag, and some plastic bags of groceries. This time, the back screen door leading to the screened-in back porch was unlocked, so I made my way through the porch, opened up the door to the house, and as I struggled to get in with all my stuff, I thought I saw my gray female cat this time dart past me and out onto the back porch, just as the inside door slammed shut between us. You'll be sorry when you realize I'm getting ready to feed you, I thought. But as I flipped on the light switch, I was amazed to see both cats were there waiting for me again. Something small and shadowy like a cat darted right past my legs twice in that house, and in 2 different locations, and I've tried to rationalize this. I watched carefully and tried to recreate the experience, but I'm convinced this was not my imagination or a trick of the shadows. This has never happened to me again, nor has anything else out of the ordinary yet happened to us while living in our house. So is it possible there's ghost cats there? I think so. I think it is. I think ghost cats can be around just like cats can be around, just like human spirits can be around. We've had many people calling in talking about dog spirits, actual listener stories. One in particular, there was a story, and I'm going to be paraphrasing this, but they had a dog and it passed away. And there was one section of the house in this story where the dog would always lay during its life. And the guy said he came home, went up the stairs into the kitchen area, and there was the dog bed off to the side. And he said he was just kind of coming through like normally. Their dog hadn't been dead long by that time. And he said that he was walking through and he looked over and saw his dog laying there in the bed. Didn't think about it, just kind of, like he had seen 1,000 times before. But then he got a few steps further and realized that his dog passed away just a week or so prior. He turned back to look, and of course the dog wasn't there. But he said it was there. It was there and looked like he could reach out and pet it. It was like fully manifest. So I do believe there's a lot to that. And again, I've talked about my mom having experiences with her dog still walking on her bed, doing his circling thing before he plops down. And she still feels him circle every once in a while and plop down. And he's been dead for years, but he still seems that he might still be with her. And I think that about the pets. I think that maybe once that bond is real, like you have a pet, you love that pet, and you devote a portion of your life to this pet, and it becomes a part of you and you a part of it. And I think that when they pass, they probably do stick around. and they become maybe a type of guardian for us, and they just linger with us and wait. And maybe that poem is true about the Rainbow Bridge, how they'll be waiting by the Rainbow Bridge so we can cross it together. But I think they're waiting right there with us. There's, they're still there somewhere, keeping an eye on you. But that's, just my opinion on it. And you can believe what you want. There's some people that don't believe animals have souls. And for the life of me, I can't get my head around that. It's like, really? I've seen dogs with more soul than a lot of people I know. So, and cats as well. So I don't believe in that for a minute. I think that anything alive has some measure of a soul, I think. But there's some that I think really shine incredibly brightly. But, all right, next comes from California. Another longie. This one's got a lot of dialogue in it. Okay. I'm not sure what to think about this one, but yeah, we'll go through it. But there's a lot of actual quotes and stuff on there and dialogue. So I hope I can read this okay. This is a different kind of story. All right. This says, my stepdad was a county social worker, and one of the places he had to go was the local sanitarium. I'm talking about a mental health hospital, and this was the place where the really bad cases were kept. I volunteered at the regular hospital less than a block away, and each time I passed the mental hospital, it was like a hand kept reaching out to me. Not a real one, but an imploring, invisible hand begging me to come. Believe me, it was the last place I wanted to venture. Of course, you wear down after a time, and I just came out and asked my stepdad, "What do you think about giving me a tour?" I said, and I remembered that he smiled, and then a mischievous sparkle filled his eyes, and he said, "I'll make the arrangements. Can you come after work tomorrow?" He said, and I told him I would be there, but I was a little nervous. Well, I didn't get off work at the hospital until 8 in the evening, and now, keep in mind, he didn't know I had gifts. I learned early on you didn't discuss this type of stuff with him. He just didn't believe in the ability to communicate with those on the other side. The deceased, the departed, etc. In a way, I was excited to go into the mental health hospital because I was being called by someone, but I was nervous as well. What if it wasn't a someone, but a something that was calling me inside of there? Well, either way, I was committed, no pun intended, to going, and there was no going back now. I watched the clock tick down until my time at work was done. I changed my clothing and met my stepdad in the lobby at the main hospital. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked me. "Absolutely, I'm sure," I answered, and off we went. We were buzzed in by a burly-looking man in white, and he looked more like a bouncer than a hospital worker, and I don't know what his job was, but he wasn't a doctor, and at that time of night, I didn't see any doctors walking the floor. It was interesting to see that it looked like a regular hospital, except the doors had stronger-looking locks on the doors, and patients wandered about, but they didn't look unstable to me. But what did I know? A young man came at me out of a darkened room and startled me. It really startled me, and I felt my heart starting to pound, and he touched my face and said, "Pretty." Then my stepdad took the young man by the hand and walked him back to the room. "Joel, get back in bed," he said. The patient appeared to be around my age, and I felt so sad for him. I wondered if he had been like this all his life. Well, I'd never have the chance to ask that question. What happened next, I didn't expect. In the sitting room, chaos was happening. I could hear chairs being thrown about, and lots of screaming and cries were greeting us in the hallway, and my stepdad took off running towards the sounds, and I was left alone. I didn't like being there. The air felt wrong, and I could see the beginnings of dark shadows trying to swallow up the ceiling light. The lights were growing dim where I waited, and I took a few steps back. It was coming to me, and I didn't know what to expect. I wanted to go forward and find my stepdad, but I felt weak. My knees were shaken by this point, and it was a matter of seconds until I saw what had called me into this place. They started to appear in front of me. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. They kept coming, and I started backing away. But then I fell, and landing on my back, I was staring up into the face of Joel, the patient my stepdad had helped back to his room. He helped me up and then stood in front of me. "Go away," he bellowed at the dark forms in front of us. He could see them. I was frozen where I stood, and all I could do was watch as he dropped to his knees and started to pray. I did the same, and the shadows started to back away. I saw my stepdad and a bunch of orderlies running towards us, and Joel was scooped off the floor and carried away, and I heard him crying out and calling out to his mother, but his voice was cut off by the closing of a door. My stepdad apologized, and I don't remember what he was saying. I was dazed as he led me outside the building, and I kept looking over my shoulder. I felt like we were being followed, but whatever haunted the sanitarium stayed within the sanitarium. It took me days to get rid myself of the fear. The unclean entities residing inside of that hospital, they were there to torment the unbalanced, the weakened. And all I could do was pray for the souls locked within their minds, locked within those walls, and I prayed a lot for Joel. Yes, those places they're dark on the best of days, and it's not an insult to the people that are there trying to do good things, but there's so much pain in those places, so much confusion, and there's so much fear and terror and anger, and it's places like that are just. I mean, even after those buildings close, there'll always be a presence in those places, because there's such the pain and all of those emotions are tattooed on the fabric of the place. And if there are indeed beings that feed on that kind of stuff, there's a buffet there. And and I'm sure there's people have passed away in those places and are probably lingering there as well. Either they become part of the shadows or they just become a tormented soul. It's very, very sad. I find that a lot of nursing homes for me are very sad too. It's hard for me to go into nursing homes because of the full spectrum of emotions that are in there. Some are in dementia or Alzheimer's and are confused and scared and lonely, and then there's the ones that are angry because their family abandoned them, and then there's a whole spectrum of emotions in those as well. So those kind of spots are tough. They're very tough, very catalyzed, and with that much emotion, there's going to be things that are drawn to that like a beacon, I imagine. So they don't just seem to go away. So, all right, there's one more that I have here, and I don't know how we're doing on time. I've been kind of yapping quite a bit. So we are at 38 minutes. So after this story, I'll pull up some more. We've got a lot of time left. So no worries, ladies and gents. This one's coming from Texas. It's kind of a long one too, though. We've got a lot of long stories tonight. This story is about my little sister, who is 7. Her grandparents have retired to a small town here in Kennard, Texas. She's very close to her grandparents and spends many weekends and holidays over there. The last time that she was there, she experienced much more than she should have. She told the story to about 4 different people, and nothing has changed with her story. She said that one night she was watching TV and started to smell smoke. She walked from the bedroom to the living room, and she said that outside she could see a big fire with Indians dancing around it, and she became frightened and ran back to the room, and she was sleeping with her grandparents. And the next couple of nights, she said that she didn't see or smell anything. On a Saturday night, she started to smell the smoke again, and she told her grandma, in which her grandma reassured her that nothing was on fire. And she said that she could only smell the smoke but not see it. And later that night, she was watching SpongeBob and started smelling the smoke again. No one was up, but she said that she wasn't scared. It just felt really strong. She went onto the back door and was looking out when she said she saw a big Indian man with feathers coming out of his hair. And she said that there were a bunch of them dancing around the fire again, and she could hear bells and people talking in whispers, and she could smell the fire. She said that the native did not speak English, but she knew that he was saying, and he told her, "Go back." but she said he didn't say it. She could hear it in her head. Well, I think that this incident scared her because she ran to where her grandparents were and started crying because she obviously became scared. But the thing is, she said that at first she wasn't scared. Well, her grandparents consoled her and she was able to go to sleep. The next night, my mom went and picked her up and she told us the story. The grandparents called beforehand to tell us about her dream because that's what they say it was. She repeated the story to a few more people and never once did she miss anything or add anything. I ended up spending the night with her, and she said that she kept seeing the big native man and he kept trying to tell her something, but she didn't know what, and that she would tell him to leave because he was scaring her. This went on for about a month until one day she said that the native left her and that she was sad about it because she knew where he went. Where he went, she did what? Because she knew where he went. Where he went, she didn't know, but she felt sad for him. I don't know what was going on, but my sister has a very good, healthy home environment with people who love her and give her attention. My mother and I believe that she may actually be able to see spirits because my grandmother used to see them also. A little family drama is the fact that my mom doesn't know who she really belongs to, my father or my sister's dad. My father's mother was able to see things, and my aunts were also able to sense things. Although my grandma leaned more into the occult, she still sensed things. I've had the discussion with my mother of my sister actually being my dad's only because of her ability to see things. My sister, every now and again, since the native ceremony incident, has seen things, and she has seen a little girl crying, a small cat. She says that she sees a man with a black hat and gold uniform on. I'd like some input. Well, I don't know. That's a tough one. Those are all tough ones. Very cool stories, though. Of course, in the U.S. here and, Canada and in the entire region, there's, First Nations have been there for thousands of years. So, of course, their presence is all over the place. Everywhere. All right, so this one's California. Another longer one, but not too bad. This is more medium length. This experience is one that I've carried with me for quite some time. When I was younger, I used to go to a summer camp that was organized through my former preschool kindergarten. The school itself was actually the remaining part of a large estate that was originally built and owned by Charlie Ruggles, the actor who played the grandfather on the original Parent Trap. The woman, I can no longer remember her name, who purchased the estate and started the school was absolutely fantastic. She's the kind of person who arranges for the Easter Bunny to come to the school and visit the kids. During Halloween, she would turn the entire basement into her witch's lair where the kids would come down and make poisoned apples, which were candy apples. Of course, this was made all the more effective by the fact that she usually wore her long black hair wild and crazy, and her outfits usually had more sequins than any one person should own. But most important to my story is the fact that, as kind and outgoing as she was, just like any teacher would, she would not tolerate any misbehavior and would give timeouts when necessary. Sadly, she passed away when I was about 7, but luckily, she left the school, summer camp, and everything to her daughter, who had been working for her already for quite some time and was really happy to carry on doing things the way her mother did. So I signed up for summer camp that year the way I always did. Well, one day, while my friends and I were waiting to leave on our trip for the day, we decided to sneak into one of the back parlor rooms where we knew the teachers kept some of the storytelling boards and we wanted to play with, but were off limits to the kids. We opened the door and flicked on the lights and walked over to the farthest left-hand corner of the room, where there was a bench attached to the wall, which we climbed on so that we could reach the story pieces on the shelf above. As my friend and myself were reaching for the boxes, that held the pieces, the lights went out. We immediately looked towards the door to yell at our other friend to stop messing with the lights. However, instead of finding our friend at the door, there stood the woman, whom we all knew to be dead. There was nothing see-through about her. She appeared to be as solid as you or I, although she seemed to be glowing, or at least creating her own light in the dim room. She simply stood there in one of her normal sequin black dresses, with her normal wild black hair, hands on her hips, as she would normally do before telling someone off for misbehaving. My friend and I on the bench were absolutely frozen, our hands above our heads outstretched to the story pieces on the shelf, and all we could do was stare in fright. Finally, my other friend, who was standing on the floor right in front of us, finally let out one heck of a scream and bolted through the dark towards the second door across the room. Once she did, the lights came back on and both my friend and the woman were gone. Needless to say, my friend and I scrambled out of the room as fast as our legs would carry us and never looked back. I attended summer camp at this school until the age of 13, and I never did see her again, but I made sure to behave myself at all times, too. Yeah, that's a hell of a chaperone there. You're probably not going to get away with too much there. This one's Ohio. It says, when I was little, about 4 years old, I repeatedly saw a dark hooded figure in my room. It wore a long black robe and had a hood, but where a face should be, it was just blackness. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and it would be standing in the corner of the room, and it would just stand there motionless, just staring at me. For some reason, this didn't scare me. It looked like something evil, but it didn't give off evil feelings. Sometimes I would just let it stand there and go back to sleep, and other times it made me uncomfortable, and I would get out of bed and tell my mom, but when we went back to my room, it was always gone. Eventually, I did stop seeing the figure. Last year, I started seeing the figure again for the first time, and the first sighting happened early in the morning. The sun had just started to come up, and I was lying in bed when I saw something out of the corner of my eye in the hall. I looked over and saw the figure in the doorway. I flipped out and screamed, and the figure sort of glided away real fast. My mom came running into the room, and I told her I saw something, and she said it was just a bad dream. Of course she did. That's what they always say. That's what they always say. It's not a dream. About a week later, I was home alone watching television when I saw the figure glide down the stairs. I ran out of the house and waited in the driveway for my parents to get home. I realized that this figure was dwelling in my house, and I had to stand up to it and not be afraid next time I saw it. A few weeks went by and nothing happened, and one day I was on my bed reading a Stephen King novel when I saw something black in the doorway. My parents were running errands and I was home alone, and I didn't look directly at it because I didn't want to scare myself, and I heard the voice say, "Don't be afraid." Well, that scared me, and I closed my eyes and screamed, and when I opened them, it was gone. About a week later, I woke up at 2 a.m. and I went downstairs to get a glass of water. And I was at the counter when I saw the shape out of the corner of my eye. I closed my eyes and said, "You scare me a lot, and I don't want to see you again." And it was gone, and I haven't seen it again. Although this sounds like something like an evil spirit, it never did give me off an evil vibe. It is just the fact that it looked like the Grim Reaper that made me freak out when I saw it. Well, understandably so, though, I guess. I don't know. We often judge things right by what we first perceive, and so I imagine that's tough, especially for a younger mind to handle. But, what are you going to do? Kids are kids. All right, this one's from Michigan. I got family in Michigan. One cold afternoon, I was exhausted from training at school, cheerleading and track, so I decided I needed a nap. I told my mom I was going upstairs to nap for a bit, and I jumped in my mother's bed instead of my own and slept. My nap went much longer than I had planned, and I noticed when I woke up it was late because the street lights were on, which beamed through the shutters. I was frustrated that the lights were off. and my door was closed. So I turned over from my stomach to the side to find lying very, very close to me an ancient man. He was in a dark suit and appeared to be extremely old. His hands were crossed over his chest. Oh no. And I couldn't believe my eyes. I was so scared. I literally couldn't move or scream. I just laid there still with my eyes shut, praying it was just a blurred vision. I opened my eyes again and he was still there. I ran so fast out of the room and down the stairs, my entire family ran to the staircase, believing I tumbled down. That's how loud and fast I ran. I was so scared to share my story with anyone. I thought I was just imagining it. 18 years later, my sister and I were talking about good old times growing up in the Michigan house with friends and family, and come to find out she encountered the same ghost herself. The same ghost experience that I did. She stated seeing an old man in a suit lying on my mother's bed after she woke from a nap herself. I told nobody my story and was so relieved to know that I was sane and what I saw was real. Shortly after my mom passed away, was it a sign from the dead? Could it have been her grandfather? We'll never know. This was my first experience, which I have had and have numerous other ones to share. I had to see a priest for these entities that seem to be around a lot. I don't know why I keep having these demonic and ghostly experiences, but I pray every night and sleep with my rosary wrapped around my hand. Yeah, that's hard. That's got to be a rough place to be. Oh, this is one. I'll save that one for tomorrow. I got to look at the clock and see where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. It's 52 minutes. Let's see if I can find a really short one. It's hard to know. Hard to know. There's no length listed on these as I open them. No, that one's really longer. Holy God. Well, that might be it, I guess. The ghost dog one is too long, so those both will be for tomorrow. I'm trying to find a short one just to close out the show with, ladies and gentlemen. So hang on. Don't go anywhere yet. I'm not done yet. This one's not too bad. It says, this story was told to me by a senior chief. It's coming from Rhode Island. When I was stationed at a Naval War College, Newport, Rhode Island, April 2003 to November 2006. Some history first. Built in 1909, the Naval Hospital in Newport, Rhode Island, saw duty for many, many years. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, it was closed, and all the clinics were moved to a newer nearby naval clinic, and the equipment and office furniture for the most part was just left in the building. This included brand new operating room equipment, and this was the time frame senior chief was stationed at the Naval War College as a first-class petty officer, E6, and served as a member of the Auxiliary Security Patrol. During the ASF patrols, that's the security patrol, one of the buildings they had to do a walkthrough of was the old hospital building. Senior Chief had heard all the ghost stories about the various spirits that walked the halls of the hospital, sailors and soldiers from various wars and conflicts, as well as dependent family members that had passed on within its halls. Senior Chief was not one to believe such stories. He figured they were just told to scare the guys while on a very routine and sometimes very boring patrol. And trust me on this, I've stood that watch. It was 2:30 in the morning. When he arrived at the hospital's front desk, he met with the building watch, one of those watches that just is stood just to give enlisted a purpose on those duty days, and proceeded to check the floors one by one. All was normal until he reached the top floor. Here, he felt like he was being watched. Though everything seemed normal and quiet, the hallway was lit from the outside by the streetlights, base side, so it wasn't completely dark, and as the senior chief rounded a corner and headed towards the back of the floor, he saw what appeared to be a red ball bouncing up and down in the center of the hallway. He stopped and watched for a moment, and then he checked the windows nearby, thinking it was a reflection from the signal light that was at the intersection on the street that ran just off the base. What he saw made his blood run cold. The light was flashing, but it was flashing yellow in both directions. He looked back down the hallway and the red ball was still bouncing, but as he watched, it stopped, resting on the ground as it did so. Then it was pushed towards him, rolling forward as if something wanted him to play. Well, see, Senior Chief didn't wait around for the ball to reach him. He raced back down the building watch, who cracked the joke, "You look like you've seen a ghost." Senior Chief made this guy finish the tour of the building with him and requested to be put on a different route his next duty day. As he talked about his experience, he discovered he was not alone. Others had seen the ball or a little blonde girl in an old-fashioned blue dress up on that top floor. Another ASF member told him of the soldiers' and sailors' faces he would see looking out of the windows. It helped the Senior Chief to know that he wasn't alone, but he still refused to go back into the hospital alone while on patrol. That's pretty cool. Very cool story. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap up our journey for the night. I hope you have a wonderful night. Oh, we got a call here. Can take a couple minutes and take the call. Is this you, Naysay?
Well, hello, most beautiful person.
Okay, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm so excited because this evening I have the wonderful fortune and opportunity to be listening to the Paranormal Portal with my 16-year-old.
Oh, very cool. Well, hello to your 16-year-old. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Well, you were bringing up the nursing home, and it reminded me of my nursing home experience. As I know you know, but some of the audience might not. But in 2000, I was ran over by an 80,000-pound garbage truck, which put me in intensive care for 19 days, and then I was put into a rehabilitation center / nursing home. The basement it was kind of a basement because it was kind of built into a hill, was the rehabilitation area. And then in the next 2 floors above me were the nursing home. And then the 3rd floor was for young adults. And the top floor were those that have some mental challenges.
Okay.
And the first day that I was brought in there, I was just, the willy-nillys were just abundant. And this would occur as I like exploring, which I always tend to do. And during the day, I was going through the floors because there was an elevator on both ends of the facility. So I would just kind of like zigzag and go through the floors just to explore and say hello to people and that, because I got bored. So the 3rd floor above me, below the one with the mental challenges, is the one that just really super creeped me out, to the point that after I went there, I was even creeped out in my room. And because of this and being Native American, I contacted the staff and the supervisors and say, hey, I want to smudge my room. And it turned out to be a big, huge deal because they wouldn't let me do it. And it went so far to where I got hold of the American Indian movement, and Clyde Bellincourt came out to the facility, and we actually did a full-blown pipe ceremony.
Oh, nice.
And we smudged my room because they were saying if I lit my smudge bowl and stuff, that they were going to use a fire extinguisher.
Oh, geez.
And so it was really interesting because it even made the local news on the TV and stuff. But it wasn't until after we did the smudging ceremony that I finally started having restful sleep. Because after I did the what would you call it? Just checking things out, exploring. And we've talked about this before, where I believe, from my experiences, and this is one, that there are entities out there that like in your bumper music, when they talk, in Poltergeist, when they talk about some of these entities, they remember your light or your energy or your essence of being alive.
Yeah.
And I believe if they can detect that, then they will follow you. And I think what may or may not have happened, I'm not 100% sure, but when I went exploring, that possibly up on the higher floors, some entity or some being, was attracted to my energy or something, because after that, literally, I think it was maybe 2 weeks, I was having very restless sleep. And I can't remember what it was, because this was 20 years ago now. I just remember the restless sleep. And that's when I talked to a couple of people, and they're like, well, just do a smudging in your room. And I said, I don't think I can, because this is a, state-regulated facility.
Sure.
And then we pushed it to the limit, and thank God Clyde Bellencourt from AIM came out and did the smudging. And with that being said, as Brent, you've said many times, it doesn't hurt to smudge at all. It doesn't hurt to take a little bit of energy or a little bit of intention just to wrap yourself in that protective, whatever you wish to call it, semantics. Right. But I absolutely believe that even when you take the intentions to surround yourself with a protective force, it helps.
Oh, absolutely. I agree completely, brother. I agree completely.
But that was it. And thank you for doing what you do so well. And I'm really glad that I got my daughter, trying to get her in on and listening to it.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you, brother. It's good to hear from you, and my best to your family.
And may you receive all of the healing energy I am trying to manipulate towards your foot.
It's actually doing pretty good now. It's actually turned a corner. So all that healing energy must have helped.
Beautiful.
Because it's doing pretty decent.
Lovely.
Now. Thank you, brother.
All right, brother. Have
right.
a good night.
Okay,
Restful
good night.
sleep. Love you all. Chat room. PPP.
See you now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up our journey tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Again, please spread the word. Check out the podcasts. You can do that on Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, iTunes. Just search for the Paranormal Portal on the podcast sections, and you'll find it. And again, that's not the same thing as YouTube. It's not the same thing. YouTube is our live streams, and sometimes we take episodes that we've done on the YouTube live streams and port them over for the podcast, because they're just good episodes and good information. But we do have a pretty amazing amount of people checking out our podcast. So definitely check them out. There's 120 some new episodes you probably never heard before. If you're looking for more of the Paranormal Portal. Otherwise, and as well, tune in here on YouTube 7 days a week, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I do live streams right every day. So we'll be here doing it tomorrow. Don will be here, and he'll be helping me to get through the 2-hour show. So I hope you guys will come back and take part in that. But that's going to wrap it up for us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. All right, guys. Love you, and sweet dreams.